So my name is Jennifer Palilonis, and I'm the director of the Center for Emerging Media Design and Development here at Ball State. My title, though, doesn't really do a good job of describing what I do. So I believe that my job is to facilitate meaningful learning experiences for students from a wide variety of disciplines and bring them together to work in project-based experiences that allow them to practice both hard and soft skills that will lead to what I believe to be innovation in journalism and strategic communication in the future. Before I talk to you about how we do that, I'd like to tell you a few things to kind of clear a few things up for you. Number one, I do not believe that journalism is dying in any form. In fact, I believe that the stories that journalists tell and the mechanisms that they use to tell them are more relevant than ever before. Second, as someone who worked in newspapers for many years, I understand that there are many different ways to tell stories and that stories take many forms. News stories in particular can be timely. Some need to be told quickly and on deadline. Others can be longer form stories that require in-depth reporting and evolve over time. So although there's no one-size-fits-all approach to storytelling, I do understand that we can use different mechanisms for telling stories to really push forward and push the boundaries of what it means to tell stories in 2019 and beyond. Third, I do not have answers that will reverse declines in newspaper readership. I know we would love to have those answers, right? And I also don't have answers that will change the massive amount of turmoil and change that's happened in the newspaper industry. But I do believe that you can meet disruption in one of two ways. You can either dig your heels in and refuse to adapt to the changing world around you, or you can meet change and disruption as an exciting opportunity for innovation and an exciting opportunity to really advance and change and grow. I also believe that educating young people, particularly those going into the field of journalism and mass communication, is about equipping them not just with skills that will help them in their first jobs, but equipping them also with skills that will span a long career, that will wind and navigate and change along the way. Unlike my father, who started his career at 19 years old as a barber, and some 40 years later retired a barber, today's young professionals will likely see their skills cross a lot of different jobs. They'll have different job titles, and they'll apply their skills in many different ways, maybe even different industries. So it's not enough for us to just prepare them for a job. We actually have to prepare them for a long and winding career. So how do we do that? Well, in the Center for Emerging Media Design and Development, we have a 2-year structure that begins by giving everyone in our program a common language for working together. So we explore design thinking, cross-platform storytelling, and usability user experience design. Then in the 2nd year of our program, our students earn all of their credit hours working in a project-based experience. So rather than taking more classes and sitting through lectures and traditional approaches to classes, they actually work in projects, and they work with real clients, and they apply those design thinking, cross-platform storytelling, and usability user experience skills to an actual project. In addition to those kind of hard skills, we also teach what some people like to call soft skills, although I kind of don't like that term because I think it kind of makes it sound like it's not very important. And in fact, the soft skills that I'm about to talk about are probably some of the most important things that our students can leave our program with. It's things like brainstorming solutions to large-scale problems through systematic design thinking strategies. It's about how to collaborate in interdisciplinary teams and how to solve problems together, how to use critical thinking and advanced problem-solving skills to approach a problem space and then build a strategic communication and/or journalistic story plan around it. So these are the skills that really equip them, I believe, for that long and winding career. Now, I'm not telling you this all about EMDD to sell you on my program. I'm actually telling you this because I'd like to sell you on the idea that in 2019 and beyond, journalism and strategic communication can really benefit from a mindset that storytelling is not about one-off stories or deadlines or covering a particular event, but storytelling is actually an opportunity to build experiences. If you're going to build experiences, though, you have to understand your audience. And so in 2019 and beyond, it's incredibly important that journalists and strategic communication professionals begin to really think about who their audiences are, how they reach those audiences, where those audiences are obtaining their news and information, and meeting those audiences where they are. It's also important that we find ways to immerse our audiences in stories and give them a voice, give them an opportunity to engage with stories and experience stories on a more personal level. So this is kind of where my approach to educating the future of journalism and strategic communication professionals lie. And I think that there are incredible opportunities to understand audiences and immerse and engage them. To kind of illustrate what I'm talking about, I'd like to share with you a project that we engaged in EMDD recently. So in 2016, we embarked on the Blue Roots Project, which is a collaboration between EMDD and Circle of Blue. Circle of Blue is a nonprofit journalism group that covers water and energy issues around the world. This nonprofit group has developed a sort of unbiased, cutting-edge way of exploring the intersections between science and how the science of the world water crisis intersects with storytelling and news. Our project really was built to address a particular problem that Circle of Blue faces. So they've done a great job of growing this audience that includes a lot of people with a huge stake in the world water crisis. So they present their work at the Woodrow Wilson Center for Scholars. They've presented their work at the Clinton Global Initiative. They have engaged an audience of people they call water buffaloes, people who are really, really engaged in the water space and understand the critical nature of this story and this problem. But the problem space that they brought to us was, in spite of that, they really struggled to engage general audiences and younger audiences in the storytelling of the world water crisis. And so they approached us and said, we'd like you to develop a strategy for reaching those audiences with our content. So our team of students engaged in a two-part process. Phase one was a research phase where we spent a great deal of time really trying to understand that audience, that 18 to 24-year-old audience. Where are they getting their news and information, and how are they consuming and engaging in these types of stories? That led to a development phase. What we found in our research was 18 to 24-year-olds are, unsurprisingly, in digital spaces and engaged very heavily in social media. And so we decided that the best way to engage that audience in this particular story was to build a strategic campaign with social media at the center. So we came up with the Blue Roots Project and that sort of subtitle, Share Your Water Story. So this project encouraged people in this demographic, 18 to 24-year-olds from around the world, to share their water stories via social media. We built a website that had a number of prompts that were designed around the various topics that Circle of Blue covers in their news. So these are the intersections between water and culture, water and the environment, water and community, your personal connection to water, water and the future, and water and action. So these different categories gave us a framework for asking people to share their stories with us and connect those stories from around the world. Now, we all know this is important in the water space because although in American culture we can get up anytime we want and walk to the sink and get a glass of water, there are many places around the world where access to fresh water is a huge problem. And so here social media becomes an incredible opportunity not just to create a personal brand and have a personal experience, but it becomes an opportunity to connect people who have very specific stories to tell about their relationship to water. So that is what we built. In addition to that, we created a number of prompts. So these prompts encouraged people and gave them focus and direction for the kinds of stories that they would post via social media. Some of them were as simple as posting a tweet. Others were more complex, like posting a story or a blog post or artwork that demonstrates the relationship that they have with the value of water. We also created a section of the site that had resources for teachers and students. So grade-appropriate prompts for children, downloadable storybooks, and other activity guides gave teachers and students some support in the classroom for how to approach this topic. In the end, we collected more than 500 stories from around the world. And what was neat about this is because of the framework that we created that tied to Circle of Blue content, it created a whole new audience in this demographic for the kinds of stories that Circle of Blue would tell. But it didn't stop there. So while this project was going on, the Vatican called Circle of Blue and asked them to help put on a 3-day workshop centered around World Water Day and centered on Pope Francis's World Water Day papal address. There was interest by the Vatican to really address this issue and spend several days bringing people together from around the world to engage in this conversation. And immediately Circle of Blue saw that My Water Story social media campaign as an opportunity to leverage that audience and an opportunity to continue that campaign through this 3-day conference. So we got to travel to Rome. And I was able to take a team of students, and I'd like to point out too, the 4 students that came on this project were trained as journalists. So they have both the journalism background and the Center for Emerging Media Design and Development background, and together those things allowed them to really kind of work in this space that kind of lies between journalism and strategic communication. So over 3 days at the Vatican, we worked behind the scenes for a day-long workshop that brought leaders from 27 different countries together to talk about the stories related to the freshwater crisis and access to clean water. Our team live tweeted and covered those events, some of which were live streamed on Facebook. And so we took part in sort of managing that and leveraging that younger audience that we had cultivated through social media. We worked behind the scenes to create posts throughout the day to keep people informed about the stories that were happening live at the Vatican. We also had the privilege of sitting on the papal platform during the Pope's papal address and showed up at 5 o'clock in the morning. They cleared St. Peter's Square, and then we got to watch as all the thousands of people came in, and we actually got to help cover that event that day as working journalists. And then finally, on the 3rd day, we got to work again behind the scenes at the Vatican, bringing together a lot of these world leaders and ran design thinking sessions to begin discussing how to approach this story in the future and new and innovative ways that we can leverage the rich potential of social media and other types of storytelling to continue to engage people in this journalistic story. Finally, when we returned to our labs at Ball State, we took all of that content that we cultivated over a year and all of those social media stories that we gathered, and then came back full circle and developed an interactive graphic experience that allow people to connect the Circle of Blue content with the social media content and explore those stories through this interactive experience. So what does all of this mean, right? So I think that what's neat about this story is that it demonstrates that what started as a collection of news stories became an information experience. And it allowed us to really tap into a lot of different innovative ways for storytelling. And we are not the only ones exploring this. In fact, I have friends at the Washington Post and friends at the McClatchy Company, for example, that are beginning to look at ways to engage audiences across platforms and places in alignment or in kind of parallel to their news operations. So while I don't have necessarily answers to what the future of journalism and mass communication look like, I do know that when you provide students and working journalists with an opportunity to experiment and explore and find new ways to tell stories in innovative ways, the opportunities for audience engagement and building experiences that will really resonate are limitless. Thank you.